All right, am I audible? Yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. A quick intro, my name is Vaidya. I'm one of the co-founders of Bluechip. I was also the one who created the SMIDS framework, which is the risk assessment methodology that we use at Bluechip. Now, I'm glad to be able to open this day with day 2 of the Crypto Safety Conference. Now, crypto and safety are not two words that the outside world, at least people outside crypto, would ever associate together. I myself got into crypto because of the volatility, the excitement, and all the chaos. But somewhere along the way, I stumbled onto stablecoins, and I fell in love with the elegance, simplicity, and the inherent stability in them. Back then, stablecoins were not particularly interesting to most people, except a bunch of stablecoin nerds. But today that has changed, and we have regulators across the world, we have media houses, and you have companies, small and large, all joining the stablecoin discourse today. So that's progress, and I'm glad that as an industry we're starting to be seen as adults by the outside world. Now, given that I was doing a lot of ratings and risk at Bluechip, my first thought was, okay, maybe I'll walk you through the risk assessment methodology. But all of that's already there in the white paper. It's on our website, so anybody who's interested can actually do that, can look at that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them elsewhere. But I thought for the purpose of today's talk, we could actually talk about something a little bit more interesting. Before we begin, I would like to have a show of hands. How many of you here prefer USDC as your first? If you had to use a single stablecoin, that would be USDC. Can I see some hands up there? Okay. How about USDT? How many of you prefer USDT? Okay, so I think altogether I have about 10 people raising hands. So the rest of you don't use stablecoins? What are you doing here? Yeah, but we'll talk about that. Okay, so it's interesting. We have 10 people who use stablecoins, but it's okay. I will take that. So a couple of months ago at Bluechip, we performed a study on stablecoin on-ramps and off-ramps. For those of you who are not aware what that means, it's the process by which somebody moves from money in your bank account to a stablecoin in your wallet, and from your wallet back to your bank account. Now, as part of this process, we spoke to a lot of stablecoin payment companies, these ramp providers, liquidity providers who basically and convert these stablecoins in fiat for you, and also to end users across the world. Now, one of the things that stood out is USDT, which we all know is the largest stablecoin today. I think it has a market share of about 65%, give or take. But when it comes to usage of stablecoins for real-world applications, that number is probably, I would say the market share is somewhere like 90%. And this data from Artemis, which is a data analytics company, will show you that the sheer dominance that Tether holds, right? Now, the question is Tether safe? Is USDT safe? USDT is the default digital dollar across the world. Yet, when we run it through our risk assessment methodology, we find that it does not meet the minimum safety standards. What do I mean by that? Very low transparency, practices. The lack of asset segregation. Again, for those of you who are not aware, asset segregation is where the company's proprietary funds are separated from the assets backing the stablecoins. Then we look for bankruptcy remoteness, like my colleague Garrett talked about yesterday. How do you protect stablecoin holders' interests in the event of insolvency? Right now, these are things that Tether doesn't score particularly well on, and we ended up giving it a D. Now, this being the most favored stablecoin in the world, naturally, when we launched this rating in 23, we met a lot of, faced a lot of backlash. One reaction in particular, this is from the founder of, rather the CEO of Tether, right? He says, it's not my stablecoin rating methodology that is wrong, the market is wrong, right? So how is it that the world's preferred dollar is basically considered unsafe right? How do we diverge that? How do we reconcile that gap? Now let's talk about how we define safety. Now at Bluechip, safety is about the structure. We look at things like high quality reserves, bankruptcy remoteness, all of that, governance, regulatory oversight, right? This what we consider, theoretical safety, or derived from facts and therefore the truth. On the left, you have what the users would consider as safety, and these are things like Lindy effect, which is how long has a stablecoin been in existence, and therefore, if you believe that it's been around for the longest time, you believe that it will continue to exist for the longest time. Then, is the stablecoin very liquid? Can the stablecoin be accepted wherever I want to use it? And if I want to acquire stablecoins, can I do it at a low cost? Now, these are experiences, and this is more tangible to the end users. Which is why, in most cases, even if perception differs from theory, perception ends up winning. Now, to illustrate this gap between trust and truth, this is a simple 2x2 axis. You have truth on the x-axis and trust on the y-axis. In the top right, we have what we'd consider the gold standard, assets which are high on trust and high on truth. These are names that everybody here will recognize. Again, I'm restricting these coins to the fiat-backed stablecoins that most people are aware, but there's a lot more. But anyway, so there's a lot of structure backing the confidence, and these are brands people love and trust, and that trust is deserved. In the bottom right, we have what we consider hidden gems. Now, an example is, Paxos, which is, in my opinion, one of the best stablecoins that exist today. Right now, these are extremely safe in theory, on paper. They're bankruptcy remote and all of that. But these are not stablecoins that come to mind when somebody is thinking about a safe stablecoin, right? So the learning from this is it's not enough to actually be safe. You have to look safe. You have to feel safe. That's when people start adopting your stablecoin. So in my opinion, this is largely a distribution and partnerships problem that Paxos and other coins need to solve. On the bottom left quadrant, we have the dead zone, which is no trust, no structure. I don't really need to talk much about this. The lesson here is that don't touch them with a 10-foot pole. And again, this is probably the most interesting part. These are brands that we all currently love or have loved at one point of time. Now, whether that love and trust was, warranted, whether it's justified by some kind of robust structure at the back end, that has, largely remained uncertain. In some cases, it's quite obvious that structure does not exist. Things like Mt. Gox, FTX, Luna, and all of that. You could even argue that Binance, to some extent, falls within this quadrant because nobody really knows where the assets are, right? But now let's talk about Tether. So I would say in the past, Tether was probably on the far left of the top left quadrant. They were a lot less reliable. I would, to use the word a bit loosely, I would say a bit shady when they first started out. But to their credit, they have made a lot of progress over the past couple of years. They've improved a lot of their, safety, transparency, standards, and we've seen them move from here to here. They've made management changes. They have, cleaned up their act to some extent. And I would imagine that, given the stakes for the stablecoin game are so high that at some point in the next couple of years, we would see them, I would bet my money on them moving towards the top right quadrant. Now, again, going back to the question, who's right, the market or the model? As is always the case, there is an easy answer, which is to say it depends. Now, what the market is actually measuring is what is the better product. For users, what they really care about is uptime, liquidity, accessible on-off ramps, right? For them, that is more tangible, right? And therefore, the market is measuring what is the better product. But from Bluechip's perspective, we're really looking at what is the stablecoin that withstands stress, right? And therefore, we're using a completely different metric, which is, you're measuring resilience, and therefore that is the safer product. Now, these are not mutually exclusive. You can be a safe product while you are a good product. Now, how do you basically turn trust into truth? Now, with completely on-chain issued stablecoins like, let's say, Liquidity's LUSD. Again, for those not familiar, you don't have a centralized, company sitting in some country which is, collecting a fiat deposit and all whatnot. It basically uses Ethereum as the ETH tokens as collateral, and you're issued a stablecoin against that collateral, right? Now, with stablecoins of, with such design, the entire mechanism backing the stablecoin, the existence of the assets and the valuation of the assets can all be verified in real time by anybody with access to internet and a device. But with fiat-backed stablecoins like USDC, USDT, this is not possible. You lack that level of verifiability. Now, when you can't verify stuff yourself, what do? Right? The next best option is to, trust somebody else with a little bit of, who has a little bit of credibility. But what's better than that? You trust many more such people who have some kind of credibility to begin with. Now, there are different ways to do this. You have, data feeds. You have third-party attestations by accountants. You have auditors, and you also have regulatory oversight. But the problem with all of these is that in isolation, these are useful, but they don't provide the full picture. For example, a data feed gives you real-time data, but it lacks the context. An attestation provides useful context, but it lacks the liveliness, because in many cases it's done on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. A lot can go wrong within that time, and we've seen that happen. Now, with a financial audit, what you get is a holistic, profile of the risk, the processes, and the controls, actually implemented and followed by the entity. But again, there is significant delay because typically these happen on a yearly basis or, in some cases on a quarterly review basis. And lastly, you have regulatory oversight. We tend to take comfort from the fact that regulatory oversight sort of defines what the constraints around which an entity can and cannot do. But usually, enforcement of these conditions is very delayed. By the time something wrong happens, the regulator finds out about it, and then for them to take action, it's probably too late at that point, and you don't want to be there. So what can you do? I would like to I would like to talk a little bit about Tether here, right? Now, the issue with Tether is a lot of people come up to me and say, USDT is the largest stablecoin. They have, attestations going on. They have assets with, a custodian like Cantor, which is very respectable, at a global scale. But at Bluechip, a key pillar of our risk assessment methodology is, governance. And when we talk about governance, what we are looking at are things like, clear redemption rules for, stablecoin holders. We look at bankruptcy remoteness. We look at, what kind of consumer protections do you derive from clear stablecoin or other regulations. You look at whether stablecoins have been attested by an accountant on a periodic basis and how, what is the frequency? Is it monthly, daily, or quarterly? And then finally, you look at, have these been audited by, a certified auditor? In the case of Tether, you will find that they do have attestations, but these are quarterly attestations. So in my opinion, there's very limited utility that you can derive from that. And then in terms of audits, Tether has never been audited in its history, right, which is a point of concern. Now, because that is and we've also heard anecdotally that I think Tether themselves, they claim that auditors are not willing to take on the audit assignment. That tells you a little bit about the risk, and given the shady history that Tether has, I'm not saying they're shady today, but that's what the auditors are basically concerned about. Right. So, given these lapses, I would say that it's important to look at a multitude of different protections that are available, and you need to have a high degree of those protections. Now, as I say, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? So, as a rating agency, it's difficult for us to place our trust in an entity which is not able to provide that verifiability, not just to me, but to somebody else that I trust. Right? But when you combine all of this, right, all these things that I spoke about on the left, what you have is something very similar to a proof-of-stake blockchain network. Essentially, all these parties involved in this process are acting as independent validators, and they also have some kind of stake, right? This could be reputational, financial. They have a license, or they have a thriving business which they don't want to disrupt. So we believe that rational actors would not want to jeopardize that, and if they either misrepresent or make an error in their certifications or whatever, they have something to lose. So we find that even though we can't verify a lot of these things ourselves, we are able to verify through other people, and that trust that we place in other people, if you place it in the right people, it converges to the truth at some point, right? So we move from place, just because you can't trust something doesn't mean you have to discard it. You can trust other people, and if structured the right way, by actually trusting more, by trusting less, I'm sorry again. By trusting more of the right kind of people, you're able to trust a single party less. So essentially, this is the way you move somebody like a Tether from an untrusted zone to a trustworthy zone. And yeah, so that is basically how you reconcile the divide between trust and truth. Thank you. Any questions?